Back, everyone. Today we're going to talk all about PowerPoint, coming to you from in front of the Starry Night painting. It's a little cliche, I know, but it's my favorite work of art. I'm a real fan, though. I've traveled all over the world to see Van Gogh's stuff, so I think I've seen almost everything that's on display, but not quite there. But hey, we'll see. Can't do it right now because we can't leave the house, but that's okay because we're here virtually. So, the plan for today is to give you some tools and tactics to make a PowerPoint that's effective. Now, let me start out by saying this. I realize that you all have never experienced a world where PowerPoint didn't exist. Because of that, you are very familiar with what works, what doesn't, how to use the program, that kind of stuff. So, if I give you some information that is overlap, sorry, but it's better to be safe and sort of, err on the side of caution in case people aren't familiar with everything that PowerPoint does. Having said that, though, even if you are familiar with PowerPoint, you've used it a long time, there are some things that people continuously and consistently do wrong. And so we'll get into some of those as well. I will say that PowerPoint is used differently in different areas of study. So the sciences use it a little different than we do over in humanities or social science. So we're going to focus on how we would use it in the communication world because, again, we're putting it in a public speaking context that's general. Okay? Let's do it. Now, the first thing you'll see here, and I know this isn't the best view, but I'm going to do it so we can talk about not only the slides, but some of the items over here as we move forward. This is a terrible slide. I mean, what in the world? Let's see if we can just zoom in on some of these things. I don't have a clue what this is about, but I'm sure someone very intelligent made it and that they got paid pretty well to make it. So, must be good, right? No. It's not just bad because, it doesn't make sense to us. Maybe it would make sense if we were, in the know, if we were studying whatever the hell this is. But it's not a good slide because there's text all over it that no one can read. There's symbols all over it that no one can see. Even if this was blown up full screen, we would still have trouble deciphering what exactly this means. And so we need to be careful with making sure that we prioritize clarity over anything else. Pizzazz, looking slick, this kind of stuff. It's just not that useful. So let's talk about some effective and efficient visual aids. Now, before we get into it, let me tell you what we're going to cover. We'll sort of touch on the expectation of a title slide and that you'll want one of those. It doesn't have to come first, but you'll need it. If you just remember here, we had this slide first. Actually, there was a blank slide so that I could talk to you without you looking over and trying to figure out what the hell that was. Then I showed you what that was so that you could still wonder what the hell is that. Then we hit the title slide. And now we're doing the preview. So, also avoid overloaded slides. We'll discuss what that means and how to avoid them. The idea, similarly, that less is more. The importance of images, the use of graphics and graphs and charts, but doing that in an effective way. And then we'll talk about the use of blank slides, not only at the beginning, which I think is a great idea, but throughout the presentation. So before we go into that, though, let me just address one more issue here. People will ask frequently if they can use something other than PowerPoint. And the answer to that is a hard no. I don't get paid by Microsoft. It's not like I can just only love Microsoft. The reason that we only use PowerPoint is because no matter where you are later in life when you're giving a presentation, that's the most likely program that will be available to you. So, if you prepare something in Prezi and then there it is, and then, you come in and you're like, all right, yep, just got to pull my Prezi up. And they're like, oh, yeah, no, this one's not connected to the internet. This is only for presentations, like, PowerPoints that you've got loaded on a jump drive or something like that. It could happen. The internet could be down. I know you can download a Prezi, but just use the PowerPoint. What about Google Slides? No, don't use Google Slides. I know, again, everybody's got it and it's available and it's free. And use PowerPoint. Use PowerPoint. Now, given our situation this semester, in that you're at home and you can't come to campus to use a machine on campus because they have PowerPoint on them, we can make an exception for Google Slides, but that's the only one. It's the closest to PowerPoint. No, what is it on Apple here? I've got it present. I don't guess it's down here. Whatever theirs is, I'm going blank on that. Now I'm just going to wonder if I don't look. Well, why can't I switch? Keynote, that's the one. Yeah, we're not looking for that either. We don't want anything. With the idea of Prezi, please, regardless of if we're on lockdown and quarantine and all that, don't use Prezi. Again, I don't get paid to trash Prezi, and it has good uses, but presenting in public speaking are not. That's not one of them. There's a situation with Prezi, and this is real. It sounds kind of almost funny, but it's far from it. There's a situation where if someone is in an audience that has epilepsy, and the speaker makes a transition in a certain way, and it's different for everyone with epilepsy. It may not affect some people, but it could others, where there's like a flashing light or a fast swirl or something like that. It could really cause a seizure. They call it preselepsy. And so I don't want you to have that on your shoulders later in life. So let's stick with PowerPoint, asterisk, or Google Slides, but nothing other than the two. All right. So when you think about the things that you'll want as an overview when you prepare to get a visual aid together, here are some ideas. First, prepare a title slide. You'll want your name, of course, and the title of the presentation on there. There could be other things in the future depending on what you're trying to use this for. It could be your company name, your university name. It could be your mentor's name if you're studying with a professor, or your boss's name. Also, pardon me, note that some companies and universities, including Grand Valley, have PowerPoint templates that they want you to use if you're presenting outside of the institution. So since I'm teaching to you and you're a Grand Valley student, I can use whatever. But if I were representing Grand Valley and I was going out to an organization in the community, Grand Valley would like me to use their template. So be aware that that is sometimes in place, and you might check before you just start going at it with your own stuff. But prepare a title slide. Have whatever information is relevant. Second idea that's on here is to remember that PowerPoint is a tool for your audience. It's not for you. It's not for your use in like notes. This isn't something that you want to just read from or reference repeatedly. You want the PowerPoint to be behind you as sort of I've gotten the handout. I believe that it's like Beyonce and the backup dancers. You're the star of the show, and so you want to stay as the star with the focus on you. But you need this so the audience can follow along a little easier. They can see things that are easier to visualize instead of just describing, and you can show. But don't try to use PowerPoint for more than it is designed to do. When you're thinking of what it's designed to do, it should be used with minimum text in order to gain the maximum impact. If you can shorten anything, shorten it. You really shouldn't have more than 5 words per bullet. I mean, I'm not a believer in these hard formulas like no more than 5, or you need 20 slides with 20 seconds a slide. There's different approaches, but just have it as brief as you can. I mean, again, the way that I set this up, and this isn't just like, oh, Carl said it was this way. There's books out there called Presentation Zen by a guy named Gar. His name's Gar, so you'd remember his name. I think it's Gar Williams. And Slideology by Nancy Duarte. Nancy Duarte makes the PowerPoints for Apple every time they reveal a new product. She did the first iPhone launch. I went to a master class of hers, and so it's not like I prefer it this way, but I'm telling you, little bit of text. Try to make this thing work as much as you can. Always go back and proofread and edit your text. It's just like a paper. you would go back, I hope, and read that out loud. If you haven't done that yet, do that for your papers. Read those out loud for other classes before you turn them in. You'll find errors that you otherwise would not. And so do that with your PowerPoint. Then, as I said earlier, focus on clarity over everything, including pizzazz, which we'll get to in a minute. All right, so this is an overloaded slide. Many of you may have seen this pop up just now, and you did one of two things. You either A, started reading everything, or B, looked at it, thought, oh God, and turned away from it. Chances are you're in one of the two camps. If you turned away from it, it's understandable because I just told you that you shouldn't do this, so you may have been repulsed. However, if you started reading it, that's natural as well because human brains are to words as German Shepherd brains are to squirrels. We see one and we need to go after it because we know how to read. And so when we see words, we're like, oh, words, I can read those. Just like a German Shepherd or most any dog will see a squirrel and think, oh, a squirrel, I can chase that. And so it's the same way. And we don't want that distraction in the form of overloaded slides. Now, let's say that all the information on this slide is very important. You still need to get the information out, but you want to make sure that you're doing it as the speaker and that you're not relying on the PowerPoint. I mean, if that were the case, if you were just going to use the PowerPoint here, you could go up to the front and just sort of run your finger underneath the words. You come over with a cursor and just then nod at people like, did you, ready? Okay, That's all we would need. We don't need you anymore. So remember, this isn't a standalone presentation. Sort of a pause moment here. There are standalone presentations out there that you'll probably see while we're on this quarantine, where your professor will make a PowerPoint that she or he wants to just put all the information on. That's a special circumstance. This is more designed for a speaker and the visual aid pointing the wrong way. So remember, all this is very important, but there it is in a very brief format. That's the same stuff. Find the core of the paper. You should always try to find the core of the paper and understand, detailed expectations. Be sure to ask students how much detail their professor wants. Yep, got it. Audience. You should always think about who your audience is so you can focus in on, time. Always know the time limit for a presentation because there it is. Never have punctuation in a PowerPoint. But if you do, and you shouldn't, notice it's missing here. So be consistent. Now, if this is a little better but not great, then this is a little better still. It's much easier for you to read. You didn't have to strain and stress and look for it very carefully. It was just right there. Now, there's still some things that we could definitely improve on here, and that is the spatial use. Think about your PowerPoint slide, if you look over at it, as quadrants. So there's a line down the center here, and then there's a line this way. Matter of fact, why not just go ahead and put those in so that we can see things? If you hear my dogs upstairs, they're upset because they're not outside with my son. Oh, tell me where it's at, PowerPoint. Usually it will tell you where your center line is, but if it doesn't, you can always not do that. Arrange, align, center. Boom. And then let's go ahead and copy and paste that. Whoops, did I cut it? There we go. I'm just going to rotate this one around. Maybe. Yeah. There's that center line. So we want to try to put something in every quadrant, and that's a rough sort of crosshairs on it. But this next image slide, if you watch that picture come in, it's right almost on the center line. So that makes the entire slide used fairly symmetrically in all the different quadrants. Now, there's a little bit of a gap here, but hey, it can't be perfect. We just want to get as good as we can. But the ideal layout of most slides, now you could just use all images, but for experiences like this one, for a public speaking event, a title, some keywords over here, and an image, or you can swap those. It doesn't matter. But that's sort of what you would want to look for. Now, if you look at these two, and I know that's a little difficult to see, one of these is right, one of them is wrong, and I'll go ahead and spoiler alert this. This one's wrong here. This is wrong, and they're very similar, but look, capitalization consistency is off. There's a difference there. There's a difference in the P, the C, audience, time, that sort of thing. So just remember that you'll want to go back and double check. That's part of that editing process where you're going to find errors. And so just be ready for those and fix them. No big deal. Also, just to back up one quick step, when you turn in your PowerPoint, remember that you're going to submit the PowerPoint. I'll give you feedback on it, still for a grade, but it's not as big a grade as the speech. And then when I send it back to you, you should have all the edits basically ready to go, or at least know where to look to edit your PowerPoint. So by the time you get to actually using this, it should be in pretty good shape. Now, talking about charts and graphs for a minute, this is an interesting specific. I like this chart, this graph, because it's valuable because of this trend line. Now, when it's blown up, it makes a little more sense, but it's also got a lot of distracting text and it's overloaded. So what I want to make clear here, a couple things. One, when I say overloaded slide, I don't just mean the text that you type in. I mean, if you copy and paste an image like this one, that's still too much text. And so you'll want to get rid of that. You have some options on that. And that's the second thing I wanted to get to is, you can recreate some of this stuff if you need to. If you have a table, for example, that has, way too much information in it, more than you need, and you just want to focus on a little piece of it, well, you don't need to copy and paste the whole thing. You could potentially crop it and just show us what you want. But let's say you've got two lines that you want and they're, apart. There's lines in between them. Well, just recreate it, drop a table in there, make it your own and go for it. So with this one, let's say that we want this trend line and we want these columns here so people can see the scale, but we want to get rid of this. Just drop a box over it. Now all that is inserting a shape. There it is. And we took it down and we dropped it in. I mean, that's it. So then a text box over top of that to give it a title. There it is, still there. So don't be afraid to get a little creative with this stuff. All right, next up, let's say that you need to use an illustration. This is a great illustration if it's 1987 in a science book for fourth graders. Otherwise, it's a little dated and ugly. But maybe this is what we're studying, and so we need this information. We need to know where the tail vertebrae are, hip bones, leg bones, so on and so forth. Well, I mean, it's 2020, right? So why don't you just go out and show us? Now, we could add more in. We could make these words a little larger if we wanted to. We could come around. But the idea here is that you can be a little more creative than just something so basic and plain. And this is just finding, I Googled T-Rex skeleton. There it is, copy, paste it over. I think I had to remove some background. If you're not familiar with how to do that, we'll look at it in just a second. And bam, inserted text boxes, inserted arrows, and there it is. Now, what I want to show you also here is that this is a blank slide, obviously, and then the tail vertebrae, and then the leg bone, and then the ribs, and that's the full image. Now notice on the left here, I'm flipping through slides. I'm not using animations. That's preferred. If you use animations, you sometimes increase your chances of having an error happen. And you know what I mean. You were here on a blank, you click it once and there's your tail vertebrae. You click it again, nothing happens. Click it again, nothing happens. So what do? You click, 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 click. All of a sudden, you're over here somewhere, right? So just use a new slide. That way it's nice and easy. You don't have to worry about accidentally double clicking as much, and it's just less, it's neater. It's neater on the screen. It's neater for you. And what you would do to do this one, so what I did, this is the slide at the top here. If you look over, I'm on slide 17 now. Slide 21 is exactly the same. You'll see there's no change. And so then what I did was just go in here, and if I can make this come out, whoops, just did this. It highlights everything for me. Delete. There's that. It's clean now. Let me go back. But and then I would put in one at a time. So I duplicated this slide multiple times so it was all full. And then I went and basically reverse engineered it. There's the full one, take out that one, take out that one, take out that one. And there it is so you can see it. All right. So think about doing that to have these slides that build instead of using transitions. You don't want the fly-ins and all that, and we'll cover that in a second. All right, for other charts and graphs, the nice clear bar graph here. This is fine. This isn't that difficult to read, and you could show us which specific bar maybe you wanted us to look at. You could point to it with your cursor. You could point to it with your hand if you're in the room, or you could just do that. You could just put another box over the one that you want us to focus on, and voila, it's done, right? It makes things quite a bit easier. So I'm seeing right here that we're not actually going to do a lot of the animation and transitions, but what I'll tell you is don't use those. Let's go back up here so we'll have a nice clean one here. Transition style, curtains. Like, really? I don't know. It just looks, it's not professional. Some people feel like it is, an extra necessary kind of thing. It's really not in most cases. I will tell you that I've used it before, and I'll see if I can find it for you. If you're going for a very specific effect, but if you're not, then you can just get rid of that. Okay, so here we go. Oh, blank slide. I'm sorry. Oh, black slide. Oh, yellow slide. What? Here we go. Now, with this, I don't know if you may know this trick, you may not. I'm going to go ahead and come back here, and I am going to put us in full screen for a minute. And now you can obviously still hear me. I'm going to hit the W key on my keyboard. Everything went white. W for white. Now I'll hit any key. I'm just going to put my whole hand down, and now I'm back. Now I'm going to hit the B key, and everything goes black. B for black. Any button brings it back. I'm going to come out of this view. Maybe. There we go. So the idea there, and I again don't know if you know this or not, but if you are explaining something on a slide and you realize that you wish you would have put in a blank slide but didn't, you can always just hit a key, right? And it goes away. So if the audience is starting to look at the screen and they're not listening to you, you can make that disappear so they can't do that. And you can go black or white. Really probably depends on the mood. If it's a bright room, you can go white. If it's a dark room, I wouldn't go white because that's blinding. But use your judgment there. The other thing is that it's okay to put in blank slides between your normal slides here. So let's say I wanted to just come back and insert a new slide. Boy. In this view, it is not quite the same. Let's come out of this for a second. That's not it either. Did I lose you? I think I did. Nope, we're back. Slides, new slide. And we'll come down here and we can format background and hide the background graphics and then change the color. I'll usually use black. So now, if this slides up and I've already just explained all this stuff, and I'm going to change gears to a completely different topic, I might take a moment to sort of cleanse the palette, if you will, and go black. So now all you see is a black screen. You won't even see this box. This will be gone. And so you're just going to be focused back on me like, oh, what's he talking about? And I say, so now that you know more about the thing, it's important that we go this other direction. We're going to go this other direction because of na. So, and then I can bring it back. If you want to build those in for yourself, feel free. But again, if you don't build those in, you could just rely on the B and W keys, and that will take care of it for you. All right, so things we've covered briefly today: the expectation of a title slide, avoid overloaded slides, remember that less is more, be sure to use images. In fact, I would recommend having an image on each and every slide. Sometimes it could just be an image if you wanted it to. We might, when we get to the next video, I'll do it two different ways so that we can see how that might look with just images, mostly images. If you're using graphics, graphs, charts, that kind of thing, be careful. And then, of course, blank slides can be your friend. Again, I keep pushing it, but don't forget that the Speech Lab is still virtually open for you, and they're really great at this PowerPoint stuff. I mean, our consultants go through a lot of training so that I can say that to you, and I have no doubt you'll be good if you go visit them. If you don't, I hope you're still good anyway. But if you have questions, do let me know, and stay tuned, because coming up next will be a video where we will make a PowerPoint so that you can see how to use the template that will be on the Blackboard site. I'll see you in just a second.